Hey, what's going on, everyone? So today we are going to answer the question, how do I build muscle if I'm over 40? A lot of people, once they hit 40 or 50 plus, wonder, is it even possible to build muscle? And how much muscle can I even build if I'm this age? So today we are going to outline step by step how you actually build muscle if you're over 40. Newsflash, these principles will apply to anyone at any age, but we're going to be talking a little bit more specifically if you are over 40. And for those who don't know who I am, my name is Luke Briggs. I'm the owner of the Total Life Fitness Academy, where we specialize in helping parents and busy professionals lose body fat, build muscle, and have more energy. I've been a coach for about 11 years, and I've worked with nearly 3,000 clients. So, first of all, just a disclaimer, you're probably wondering, I am not 40 myself yet. I'm 35 years old at the time of this recording. However, I have coached well over 1,000 people who are over 40 years old, probably multiple thousand. And in fact, that's the majority of the people who we coach right now. So I definitely have a lot of experience helping people achieve just that. So first, we're going to do the quick and dirty on some of the scientific principles or just some of the background on muscle building. So first of all, you're probably wondering, why is building muscle even important? Why should I even care about building muscle? I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. So lean muscle mass decreases with age. According to Harvard Medical School, you lose about 1% of your bone mass each year, in addition to muscle mass. So not only your bones, not only your muscles, but also you lose bone mass as well, which is obviously not a good thing. And if you don't do anything to replace the lean mass that you've been losing, regardless of what your goals are, your body fat percentage is going to increase over time. So even if your weight is the same, but you're losing muscle and you're gaining body fat, that's not going to be a good thing. If you lose muscle, it's going to make your bones more susceptible to breaks and fractures. And it could even lead to osteoporosis over time, which is why it's really important to continue to get stronger and build muscle. And also, by building muscle, muscle is going to burn more calories than fat. So just having more muscle is going to be a good thing. More reasons to build muscle, you're just stronger. You're capable of doing more. If you're helping someone move and you're trying to pick up a box, you're not going to have to worry about throwing out your back because you have a strong core and you can easily move it. Doing chores around the house, doing things outside, playing with your kids. You're also going to lower your risk of injury. Now, you can't ever completely prevent injury. I see a lot of people say injury prevention. It's all about injury risk reduction. So you can reduce your risk of injuries that would otherwise be considered preventable, like muscle tears or ACL tears, things like that are going to be a reduced risk by you just doing more for your body. And then also, the more muscle you have, it's going to bolster your metabolism. So lean muscle tissue is the most metabolically active tissue at rest. So AKA, the more muscle you have, the better your metabolism is going to be. You're going to be able to eat more food or more calories while still maintaining the same weight. Always a good thing. One of the things that really comes into play in the beginning is the mindset. It's very easy to think like, well, I'm over 40. I'm just not going to be able to build muscles. It's going to be really hard. It's not even worth it. And it's understandable why you may be thinking that way. You're like, I'm not in my 20s or 30s anymore when it was so easy. Now, I got kids. I'm working full time. I feel like I have so many commitments. It's just going to be really hard. The thing is, if you go in with the mindset that you can't do it or it's going to be too hard, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're already setting yourself up for failure before you've even begun the process. The mind and the words that we say to ourselves are so powerful. That's why I'm a huge fan of positive self-talk and decreasing that negative self-talk. Like, I can't, I won't, there's no way I can. Words and phrases like that, don't even have them in your vocabulary. Even if you just think them, just get rid of them. If you don't believe in yourself right now because you have no evidence to believe in yourself, that's understandable. Instead of saying, there's no way I'm going to be able to build muscle, Just say instead, I'm working on improving my ability to build muscle. So you're not saying like I suck at or I can't do something. You're just saying I'm working on improving. That simple mindset shift makes a huge difference. So the science of muscle growth. We'll just go through this really quickly. If you add more myosin filaments to each muscle fiber, that will make the engine bigger, just like the engine in a car. To build a bigger engine, you need parts like protein and a mechanic, which is mTOR. So when you lift weights, you wake up the mechanic, which is mTOR. So let's say you're bench pressing, bicep curl, whatever. mTOR is going to go to work via muscle protein synthesis. But because of muscle protein breakdown, your body needs to create a positive protein balance by taking in more dietary protein, aka being more anabolic. So catabolic is muscle wasting, anabolic is muscle growth. And a lot of times we hear anabolic around like anabolic steroids or like, oh, that's a bad thing. No, anabolic just means you're in muscle building phase. So you're building muscle versus losing muscle. There are 3 keys to muscle growth. This was made popular by Brad Schoenfeld, a researcher, and they are mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. So the first and most important one is mechanical tension. So what exactly is mechanical tension? Now, a lot of people will think this as like the more weight you lift, the more muscle you're going to build. And that's not the case, because you see bodybuilders lift less than powerlifters, and powerlifters are people who are doing the bench, the squat, and the deadlift for 1 rep as heavy as possible. So you don't necessarily need to lift as much weight as possible, but you put more tension on the working muscles. So if you're just lifting pink dumbbells that are 5 pounds and you're never actually challenging yourself any further, you're not going to build muscle as if anywhere near where you would if you were lifting heavier weights or just placing more tension on the muscles in general. So it's about the mechanical tension that you're placing on the actual working muscle. Now, the second part is metabolic stress, which is probably honestly the least important of the 3, but it's that burn you get, right? Like, Arnold Schwarzenegger calls it the pump from decreasing the pH in your working muscles. And then there's also muscle damage, which is where your muscles are actually damaged and then they grow back stronger. So really the biggest overall driver is going to be volume, increasing the amount of work that you do over time, which is progressive overload. Now that is sets times reps times weight. So you can increase volume from increasing the sets that you're doing in a training session. So if you're always just do 2 sets of 10 of bicep curls and you've been doing those for a really long time and you're trying to grow your biceps, if you just keep doing 2 sets of 10 at the same weight forever, you're not really going to grow. You need to then do 3 sets of 10 or 2 sets of 12 at the same weight, or 2 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 10, but you increase the weight. Or you can also, just by improving your form, which frankly I still am to this day, continuously working on improving my form. Just by improving your form, you can also increase the challenge and progressive overload on your muscles as well. So you have to constantly be doing a little bit more over time in order to build more muscle. If you're always just doing the same weight, same set, same reps, in the same routine for months and years on end, and you wonder why your body's not changing, it's because you're not challenging it. You need to be consistently doing more as long as you can maintain proper form. With muscle growth, if you don't continuously expose your muscles to resistance, they will shrink, which is muscle atrophy. We don't want our muscles to atrophy. You need to continue to expose your muscles to a greater stimuli, especially during the lengthening of the muscle or the negative portion of the lift. So for example, if you're doing a bicep curl, when you are contracting your muscles is when you're squeezing in, and when you're lengthening your muscles is when you're reaching away. You feel that lengthening. That's actually where more muscle growth is going to happen. A lot of people just focus, like, for example, if you're doing a bench press, a lot of people like bounce it off their chest and just press up. And I'm not saying like you can't build muscle that way, but you are seriously limiting your potential because you are not paying attention to the eccentric or the negative part of the lift. So it's important to go under control, and you can even do, 3-second negatives, pauses at the bottom. You can do a lot of different things to increase the tension that you're placing on your muscles. So especially during the eccentric portion or the lengthening portion, it's really important that you're paying attention. If you're ignoring that portion, first of all, you're going to increase your chance of injury, because if you are just going out of control, if you're like trying to bottom out a squat and you're going out of control, or you're trying to bring down the barbell too quickly on your chest, or even like a dumbbell, or you're going down too quickly on push-ups, you're going to risk injury, and then you're also not really getting the stimulus that you need. So tissue repair happens primarily while we're resting. So that's why rest is important as well. If you're just training like 7 days a week, I have coached tons of like endurance athletes over the years. And if you're an endurance athlete and you're always training and you're never resting and recovering, you are limiting your potential for muscle growth. That's why, as an aside, if you are training for a specific sport as an adult, you still need to have an off season or some form of recovery as a periodic approach throughout the year. So, like, for example, if you're training for Ironman, just because maybe some people are listening to this, training for triathlons, which in Wisconsin is in September, maybe your hard season is from March or April through September. And then I see a lot of people who will then continue to train hard all the way through the year. It'd probably behoove you to take, October, November, December, maybe in January, and focus on a different goal. It could be fat loss, it could be muscle gain, it could be strength gain, because by having some sort of off season, you're going to allow your muscles and body to recover and work on bringing up your weak points so that the next year you can come back even stronger and even better. It's just why athletes do that as well. Like, in the NFL, they play from September or, in the preseason to, if you do really well and you make the Super Bowl, it could be early February. But then they have, they basically play for like 5 months, but then they're off for 7 months. Or like in the NBA, they start in mid to late October. And then, if they don't make the playoffs, maybe late April. And if they make the playoffs and make it far, maybe early to mid June. So they still have a few months that they're off, because it's really hard to always be on all the time. So that's why it's important to have periods of rest. So hormones, age, and gender all impact our ability to build muscle. So young men, let's just be honest, young men with higher levels of testosterone have the advantage when it comes to muscle growth. Not that you can't build muscle if you're not a young male, but you obviously don't have as great a potential. So meaningful muscle growth does require challenge and does require stress. So it's not always going to be comfortable. If you're thinking that you're just going to be doing all these super comfortable workouts and you're never going to be challenged, you're never going to be sweating, you're never going to be sore, you're never going to be tired, then you're probably not going to go very far. Now, the prerequisite to a good workout, you do not have to be sweaty, tired, and sore, which a lot of people think that, oh, if I just crush my body, that means I had a good workout. That is not at all the case. But if you are never sweaty, tired, or sore, you are probably not pushing very hard. So you need to be somewhere in the middle. One of the biggest things that people oftentimes tell me as well is that, but Luke, I don't want to build muscle. I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. This is like one of my favorite quotes of all time from Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I quote, he said, "When people told me, Arnold, we never want to look like you," he replied back, "Don't worry, you never will." And I just absolutely love that quote, because they're implying that it's just like, if you just train and lift weight, you're just automatically going to look like Arnold. Like, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's just like saying if you just try at anything, you're going to be whatever, right? So, I mean, if you like to achieve at the highest level requires a very high level of commitment, dedication, sacrifice. I mean, Arnold is going through phases where he's training twice a day. Obviously, this was back in the 60s and 70s. Now he's in his 70s, but back in his heyday, I mean, he's training twice a day, especially if you read his book, the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. I mean, he's eating thousands upon thousands of calories, and he is dedicating his life to this. Now, I'm guessing you are not doing that, so you have nothing to worry about. Moving on, you might be wondering again, but why is this important to me then? So, muscle mass, we talked about bone mass before, but muscle mass decreases approximately 3 to 8% per decade after the age of 30. And this rate of decline is even higher after the age of 60. So the involuntary loss of muscle mass, strength, and function is a fundamental cause and contributor to disability in older people. If you see people who are in wheelchairs or walkers, it is usually because they have lost strength and muscle, right? So if you want to decrease your chances of having that happen to you, you need to stay strong. You need to keep building muscle. Don't let your muscles atrophy. Lift weights, get stronger. So the loss of muscle mass also leads to increased body fat and even increased insulin resistance in the elderly population. All of these changes, unfortunately, are greater risk factors for a number of health conditions like type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and osteoporosis. All things that you do want to avoid, right? So, all this to say, lift some weights, build some muscle. So, how do you actually build a strength program? That's a loaded question, and I could spend all day talking about this, but I just want to give you the quick and dirty on this. Choose exercises that are safe for your body and your experience level. Also known as pick exercises that don't hurt you and you can keep doing for a long time. So if full range of motion squats hurt your knees when you get to the bottom, then do 3/4 squats to a box, right? Like don't do just something just because, it says on the internet that you have to do something or someone says you have to do something. Like there are no specific exercises that someone has to do. There are always different variations of exercises and movements that you can do. So if you have had, so many different knee repairs and, doing a full range of motion squat just really hurts, or like a lunge, you can do things like leg extensions. You can do things like leg press. There's so many different other variations you can do. Now, if you're training the lower body, doing exercises like squats, leg presses, leg extensions, leg curls, RDLs, deadlifts, back extensions, hip thrusts, belt squats. There are all sorts of different movements that you can do. So you don't have to do all of these, but these are examples of some of the exercises that you can do. Now, if you're training the upper body, you can do things like bench press variations. And all these are variations you could potentially do with dumbbells, barbells, cables, bands, like all sorts of different variations that you can do. Overhead press. Now, I would venture to say that a lot of people over 40 probably should not be overhead pressing. Maybe you could do like a landmine press, which is with like a barbell where you do one at like a 45-degree angle. But a lot of people who are over 40 tend to have poor thoracic spine mobility in your upper spine, meaning you're very rounded over, very kyphotic. And in this case, when you try to lift your hands overhead, your bones and joints are going to be banging into each other because you don't have a lot of room to move them overhead. So a lot of times it's not even your shoulder mobility. It's oftentimes thoracic spine mobility. So if you can work on doing different mobility exercises that improve your thoracic spine extension, then that is always going to be a good thing. You could, lie in a foam roller, pin the foam roller underneath your shoulder blades and extend back. That's one that could help. Obviously, getting actual joint manipulations from a health professional could also potentially help. So overhead press, chest press is an exercise that you can do for your upper body. Push-ups, lat pull downs, chin-ups, pull-ups, although make sure you're actually using full range of motion. I see a lot of people say they can do 15, 20 pull-ups and they're doing half pull-ups I don't even know what the point of those, other than just to stroke your ego. I don't even know what the point of that is. Chin-ups, do them full range of motion, all the way up, squeeze your back, all the way down. Inverted rows, dumbbell rows, the list goes on. And then if you're training your core, now if you are doing compound movements, full body exercises, you're going to be training your core along with that. If you're doing a squat or if you're doing a deadlift, you're also going to be training your core. You're going to be training your stabilizer muscles. It's not just like you're isolating your hamstrings, you're isolating your quads, you're training a lot of different muscle groups. Now, if you want to target specifically the core, you can do exercises like planks, hanging knee or leg raises, mountain climbers, side planks, loaded carries, hollow body holds, all sorts of different variations. Obviously, pick ones that feel good to you and pick ones that are actually going to benefit you. Don't just pick ones that are easy or feel like you're already good at. If you want to be strong, if you want to build muscle and you want to stay healthy in the long run, choose exercises that help bring up your lagging body parts. A lot of us have a weaker posterior chain, which is our backside. We have stronger front sides. Like a lot of cyclists have very strong quads, but very weak hamstrings. Now, if you are very imbalanced from your front to your back, then you are going to be at an increased risk of injury. So that's why doing things that are going to strengthen your hamstrings, your glutes, your low back muscles, your upper back, like any one of your posterior chain muscles, it's always going to be a good thing to, in general, work more posterior chain than you do anterior chain, just if you want to be healthy in general. So what are the factors for muscle growth, or how fast can you grow muscle? Now, the rate of muscle growth is going to vary quite a bit depending on your training age, which means how long you've been training consistently. Now, if you're someone who's been training for years and years and years and years, and you've been very consistent with it, your potential for muscle growth is going to be limited compared to if you have a lot more potential because you are a beginner with your strength training or just following a proper nutrition plan, high protein, or you're someone who's had a long layoff that's been months or even years since you've trained or eaten well consistently. So how fast you can grow muscle is going to be highly dependent on where you're starting from. Now, how often do you want to train? You want to train at least 2 days a week, at least 2 to 3 days per week. Now, ideally, at least 3, if not 4. So I personally train 4 days a week. For most people, if you can sustain it, 3 days a week tends to be a really good amount. 2 days a week is going to be better than 0 days a week. I don't really like training just 1 day a week because you're only hitting each muscle group one, or whatever muscle groups you're training, 1 time a week. 2 times a week is going to be a better stimulus for most people. And then even more ideally, you do 3 times per week. Again, obviously 1 or 2 are going to be better than nothing. 3 would probably be the most ideal, or 4. If your body can handle more, you could potentially even do 5 or 6. There's no magic number that you have to do. It just depends on what you can recover from. Like some people can recover well from 5, 6 days a week. Their sleep is on point. Their stress management is on point. They've had a lot of training in their past, so their bodies have already adapted to that type of training load. Whereas if you're someone who's starting over or starting as a complete beginner, your body is not going to be able to handle as much as someone who's been training for a really long period of time. You want to make sure also that you're sleeping at least 7 hours per night. The exact number of hours is probably going to depend on the person, but I mean, if you're sleeping 4.5, 5 hours a night, like that's one of the lowest hanging fruits. Like a lot of people look for supplements or medications, or, should I get on TRT if you're a guy, or, look at insert XYZ supplement here. I mean, if you're not even sleeping, long enough, like you're missing. I mean, that is like one of the main things, because tissue repair and just repair of everything in general happens when you're in certain periods of sleep. So you want to make sure that you are sleeping well. Then you want to keep your stress levels to a minimum. Now, I know if you're listening to this, you're like, but Luke, I have 8 million things going on right now. I'm taking my kids everywhere. I have so many activities I'm involved in. I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. Got to take care of everything at home. How on earth am I supposed to keep my stress levels down? So take time during the day, go for walks, do deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing. You want to make sure you're not always in sympathetic mode, the fight or flight mode. You want to make sure that you're also spending periods of time in parasympathetic mode, where you're in that rest and digest mode. Because if you're always in fight or flight mode, that's not going to be a healthy thing for your body. So take time during the day for yourself, whatever it is. If you like to meditate, if you like to relax, do deep breaths, do some sort of activity that calms you. Maybe you're petting your dog, whatever it is. Take some time for yourself so you can get out of sympathetic mode and get back into parasympathetic mode. Then in terms of your protein intake, you want to make sure that you eat minimum 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Or if you're someone who has quite a bit of body fat to lose, then target body weight. So for example, if you're 300 pounds right now and you are aiming to be like 180, if you were to take in 300 grams of protein, that would be a lot. So you might want to take in closer to like 180. And then you want to eat the appropriate calories for your goal. And we'll get into that here momentarily. So now we're going to go through a sample day of workouts. Now, obviously, there are many different ways you can create programs. This is just an example. So first of all, you're probably wondering, should you work out differently if you're over 40? Now, there are a couple of things that I want to cover here. And the first one is we want to focus on quality over quantity. You want to make sure that you are, instead of just doing a ton of work, you're maximizing the amount of work that you're doing. You want to slow down the movement. You want to make sure that when you're doing exercises, you're not just trying to push your body as hard as humanly possible from something that you can't even recover from. So slow down the movement and then get a lot of your volume work. If you're doing like barbell lifts for your main exercises, like, barbell squat or bench press or deadlift or overhead press, you want to get a lot of your volume from dumbbells, cables, bands, and kettlebells instead of just barbells, because a lot of those are going to be a little bit better on your joints. Not that you can't do all barbell work. And in fact, I've coached a lot of people who have done all barbell work, but if you're not under the supervision of a trainer or a coach who knows what they're doing, and you're just doing this on your own, I'd recommend for a lot of people getting your volume from some of those other modalities. Number 2, make sure that you are warming up thoroughly. So you want to allocate more time to warming up. Now, for me personally, like even at 35, like it definitely takes a little bit longer for my joints to warm up. But I also, I'm not necessarily spending, 30 minutes rolling around on a foam roller and doing all these dynamic warm-ups. Like if you're doing an exercise, just do more ramp-up sets. So if you're doing squats, instead of just like going right to your heavy sets, previously I maybe did like 2 warm-up sets. Now I might do like 5 warm-up sets. Like if I'm going to work up to a set, let's just say, for example, at 225 on squats, because I don't squat nearly what I used to, and I haven't really heavy squatted in a while, then I might do a set with the bar. Then I might do a set with 95 pounds. Then I might do a set with 135 pounds. Then I might do a set with 165. Then I might do a set with 195. And then I might go up to 225. So I would just do more warm-up sets to work up to my top weight. So make sure that you are warming up thoroughly. And then number 3, make sure that you are recovering harder. You need to focus more on what you're doing outside of the workouts. You're not 19 years old anymore where you can just, be hungover the next day and just feel great and do whatever. Like your body has more miles on it. So you need to make sure that you are doing things outside of your workouts to complement muscle growth. So you need to make sure you are not drinking excessively. You are eating ample calories. You are eating quality food. You are sleeping, managing your stress, taking enough water. There's so many different things that you can do. Just make sure that you are taking care of your body outside of the training sessions as well. All right, so here's a sample full body training circuit. So as an example, let's say you just want to do something that's full body and you had access to a full gym. You could do 3 different supersets, because I like supersets, which means like you do one exercise right after the other because it saves time. And then just do 2 different exercises that don't interfere with each other, like one upper body, one lower body. So you could do goblet squats and inverted rows. So you could do like 301 tempo on the goblet squats, where you're going like down for 3 seconds, up for 1 second. You could do 2 warm-up sets and then 2 working sets, 8 to 10 reps. Then for inverted rows, same thing, go slower on the tempo. You could do 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. So both you end up doing 4 sets. Then 2A and 2B, you could do split squats and push-ups. You could superset those, again going slower on the way down. Split squat, each of them you could do 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps. So split squats, you do 8 to 10 reps on each side. I generally like, for most people, kind of like that 8 to 12 rep range, especially when you're starting out. That's usually a pretty good range, where you're not doing so many reps where you're losing form. Because if you're just doing like 30 reps, like after a while, it's gonna be tough to concentrate and actually use good form. But if you're only doing like 5 reps and you're not doing barbell work, it's not really enough to stimulate what you need to stimulate if you're using, like a dumbbell or kettlebell or something like that. And then 3A, 3B, you could do a cable anti-rotation Palloff press, which means you're standing, holding like a cable, then pressing out and pressing back while keeping your body stable. Again, using a slow tempo. And then like your 3B could be like a cable face pull. You're pulling the weight elbows high toward your face, working more of your upper back and your upper back stabilizers. You could do 3 sets of each, 8 to 10 reps per side of the anti-rotation Palloff presses. And then you could do like a little bit higher reps, like 12 to 15 of the face pull. So, I mean, here you're doing, a good 22 sets. That's a pretty good amount of sets. And then you could potentially do some extended warm-ups on those if you wanted as well. And that'd probably take you 45 minutes. Now, if you're doing a nutrition plan, the first thing that you want to do is you want to determine your calorie intake. Now, there are obviously lots of equations out there, like the Mifflin equation, the Harris-Benedict equation. We're going to keep it simple. So we're going to say that if you are currently sedentary, like you're maybe getting like 5,000-6,000 steps a day or less, and you're not working out at all, you want to multiply your body weight by 10 to 12. So if you are 200 pounds, that would be, just for simple math, that would be between 2,000 and 2,400 calories. Now, if you're moderately active, maybe you're, 7 to 10,000 steps, maybe working out a couple days a week, you want to multiply your body weight by 12 to 14. And if you're very active, you're like working out pretty much every day, you're very active with your job, maybe you're getting, 15 to 20,000 steps a day, you want to multiply your body weight by 14 to 16. So if you're sedentary, multiply your body weight by 10 to 12. If you are moderately active, multiply your body weight by 10 to 12 to 14. And then if you are very active, multiply your body weight by 14 to 16. So as an example, let's say you are a 165-pound female who's moderately active. Maybe you're doing 3 to 4 workouts per week. You're walking 8 to 10,000 steps per day. What we're going to do is we're going to take 165 times 12, because you're a little bit more active. And then that would be 1,980 calories. We'll round it to 2,000 for simple math. So protein, we want to do 0.8 or 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, or your target body weight. We're just going to put it right at 1 gram per pound of body weight. So we're going to put you at 165 grams of protein. So a good starting point for you would be 2,000 calories and 165 grams of protein. You eat at that amount for a couple weeks at a maintenance amount. You want to see, am I losing weight? Am I gaining weight? Am I maintaining weight? And then once you have actual data to go off of for a couple weeks, you're consistently tracking your nutrition intake, making sure you're hitting your targets consistently every day, not just winging it. And you are also, weighing yourself consistently, always under the same condition, first thing in the morning, before you eat or drink anything, after you go to the bathroom. and then weigh yourself either naked or in underwear, or if you're a woman, sports bra or whatever it is. Just make sure you're always weighing yourself either naked or in minimal clothing so that the variable is always the same and always under the same conditions. Step number 2 is you need to actually track and measure your food. Get a food scale. Get a food tracking app. Stop just eyeballing your foods. This was one of the biggest game changers for me personally when I first saw a lot of results, is I was just eyeballing my portion sizes, but you need to track everything. So for the next 7 days, I challenge you, track every single thing that goes in your body. Every single item. Use a food scale. Weigh it in grams and ounces. Don't just weigh in tablespoons and cups, because those might not be that accurate. So, if you're taking like a scoop of peanut butter and you're just eyeballing like what you think, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter is, which is, 30, 32 grams, and you're just kind of like, yeah, that looks like about right. I mean, you could be taking in 450 calories and it could actually be 75 grams. Whereas if you actually measure it out, it's, 30 grams, 180 calories. So you could be taking in, 2 to 3 times as many calories as you think you are if you're just eyeballing it. Peanut butter is just one example. There are many other examples as well. Same thing with olive oil. We had one person in our program who has lost about 40 pounds, and someone who really loved to cook. And she would always say she would just kind of, douse everything in olive oil and just kind of pour it over, because she thought olive oil is healthy. It doesn't really matter. But I mean, she was probably pouring hundreds and hundreds of calories of just olive oil onto her food every single day. When she actually started measuring it out, she was like, oh, wow, 1 tablespoon of olive oil is 120 calories, and it's really not that much. So you want to make sure that you're actually measuring things out. Again, use a food scale, not tablespoons, not teaspoons, not cups, because that could make it way different. And then the next step is plan, and did I mention plan? Planning gives you freedom. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Failing to plan is planning to fail. And I know what a lot of you are thinking, but Luke, I don't have time to plan. I'm too busy. That's exactly why you need to plan. You need to set aside time to plan. Otherwise, you're always going to be fighting from behind the 8 ball. If you're never planning and you're just winging it going into each day, and you're like, it's the end of the day, and you're like, oh crap, I have 500 calories and 80 grams of protein left. What am I supposed to eat? I have no idea what to eat. That's not going to be very helpful. Instead, pre-plan your food the night before so you know exactly what you're going to eat. If you're using a food logging app, pre-log it into the food logging app so you already know what you're going to have going into the next day, and it makes it a whole heck of a lot easier. So eating, we always hear things like, oh, you can eat anything that you want and lose weight, which is true. You can eat anything that you want and lose weight. However, you can't eat as much of anything as you want and expect to lose weight. So eating things like pizza, ice cream, and burgers while actually dropping weight only works if you plan these things into your budget. It's the same thing with saying, like, you can spend money, you can buy anything you want and still stay within your budget. But if you're just spending money on everything, then you're not going to stay within your budget. Maybe you want to buy those, $500 really nice tickets to this show that or this musical that you wanted to go to, and you're like, hey, how often does this happen? I want to really splurge on myself and do this for myself. Or you want to go to get like courtside seats at your favorite sporting event, and the tickets are like $1,000 for you and a friend, and you're like, how often do I do this? I want to treat myself. You can do that, but then if you're also then that same month going and spending $1,500 on a new TV and going on a $3,000 vacation, you can't just do everything at once, right? Like, you have to strategically plan it, depending on obviously your financial situation, right? Like if you have a different financial situation, change those numbers. So you also want to make sure that you, again, plan out your meals for the week and plan out your meals for the next day. Make sure that you plan out when you're grocery shopping, or ordering from your meal delivery service, or if you're ordering from the store and having it delivered, or having, ordering from their website and then going and picking up the food, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you have a plan. So let's say, again, you're that 165-pound woman and you're at 2,000 calories a day. So here's an example eating plan. Meal one could be 3 eggs, a scoop of protein powder, 40 grams of oatmeal with cinnamon added to it, and 32 grams of peanut butter. You could put the peanut butter and cinnamon in the oatmeal. And you could even mix in the protein powder, or you could just mix protein powder with water. And then you could have some eggs as well. That'd be pretty high protein. Meal number 2, you could have 6 ounces of white meat or white fish, like chicken or tilapia, because those are pretty lean. That'd be like 35 grams of protein right there. Then you could have 12 ounces of sweet potato or regular potato. You could have like a medium piece of fruit, like a banana, like an apple or a pear. And you could have pretty much unlimited greens. Like if you're having like lettuce or spinach or broccoli or asparagus, those are going to be very minimal calories. Like no one ever like got fat or gained a ton of fat because you ate too many veggies, right? Like those are basically water weight. Meal number 3, then you could also stick with 6 ounces, and then you could switch it up to 93% lean ground beef or turkey. You could do like 190 grams of brown rice or jasmine rice or quinoa. And then you could add in like an extra scoop of protein powder for dinner. I'm a huge fan of doing like, if you struggle right now to get enough protein in, add 1 to 2 scoops of protein powder in. 1 scoop of protein powder could be 20 to 25 grams of protein. So you could get, by adding in 2 scoops, you could have 40 to 50 grams of protein right there. And then again, you could have unlimited veggies, unlimited greens, lettuce, spinach, broccoli, asparagus, whatever it is. So that is how, if you are over 40, you can build muscle. It's not impossible. It just requires more diligent effort. So again, it requires you just training a little bit smarter, not necessarily harder. You making sure that you are focusing more on other things. Like when you're younger, you can get away with, not getting as much sleep, overtraining, eating like crap. You can get away with so many different things when you're younger. But when you're older and your body has more wear and tear on it, you just need to be smarter with what you're doing. So building muscle is possible. Pick the right exercises that are going to feel good for your body. Make sure that you eat an appropriate intake to support your training. Not just the types of foods, but also the quantity of food is even more important than the quality of food. So make sure you're focusing on food quantity as well, getting enough sleep. And then just remember, it takes time. So many people think that if I do this for 2 weeks and I don't see results, I'm just going to quit. There's no point in even doing this. Rome wasn't built in a day. If you are not close to where you want to be right now, you need to give it time. It didn't take you 2 months to get to where you are right now. It's not going to take you 2 months to reach your ultimate goal. Be patient. It could take months or even years. And I know a lot of you might think, well, then what's the point of even trying if it's going to take so long? Building muscle is hard. Having a good body composition is hard. But you know what else is hard? Being unhealthy. Having type 2 diabetes, having cardiovascular disease, having your muscles waste away when you're elderly and you're unable to do so many things because you don't even have muscle mass to begin with. That's also hard. So choose your hard. So hopefully this has been helpful. Hopefully this has been insightful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me personally. I have all my links in the show notes. If you are in Wisconsin and you want to join our Wisconsin Fitness and Nutrition Facebook group, right now we have our holiday survival guide in there. We have over 100 protein, snack, and shake recipes that are under 500 calories, absolutely free. Just opt in to join our group in the link below, and we will see you there. As always, take care, and we will chat soon.